Now, Lance Stroll's incompetence and performance woes came alive yet again in Qatar, and it seems like this picture is going to repeat itself throughout his tenure at Aston Martin, given the circumstances he's currently obligated. However, reports say that he might not be in the best of position, as investors and his father have already started to lose patience with his reckless behaviour, as he threw the steering wheel after the poor qualifying and got into a heated argument with his coach. With Aston Martin poised to lose the 4th spot in the Constructors' Championship to McLaren, as well as bringing in a lot of new sponsors and the partnership with Honda from 2026 onwards, it seems like Stroll's destiny in F1 is as good as gone. Lance Stroll is the most protected driver on the grid, given the fact that his father owns the team and he could get away with any result on the grid, but that might change very soon. After the latest poor performance, where he managed to be 1.1 seconds slower than his teammate Alonso and finished P17 for Sunday's race, Stroll threw away his steering wheel worth $100,000 and pushed his coach away, something that did not translate into good news for his foreseeable future in the sport. This comes after rumours that Stroll never intended to be a Formula 1 driver, and his biggest wish was to become a tennis player, but since his father invested so much in the sport, he was kind of forced to do it. In the lower categories, such as in F3, as well as in his early days in Williams when he was driving for a team that had no relationship whatsoever with his father, Stroll has shown a lot of potential and even managed to score podiums as well. But the comfort zone that his father created in Aston Martin for him seemed to have destroyed every bit of potential that Stroll had right now, and the numbers say it all. As of now, Alonso leads the championship battle of Aston Martin on his own, trying to hold the fort for as long as possible. But the 136-point difference that stands between them in the Drivers' Championship is definitely an indicator that something is horribly wrong with Stroll's performance. Alonso managed to climb on the podium 7 times, while the best position Stroll has been able to obtain in 2023 was the P4 sprint finish in Austria, which wasn't even close to what the car was capable of doing back then, considering it had a lot more pace, as we've been able to see through Alonso's performance. But be that as it may, Lawrence Stroll has given a brutal promise that as long as he's leading the team, his son's job is secured, which is why we're not going to have a hard time understanding why Lance is acting the way he is right now. Now, the qualifying duel between these two speaks a lot as well, as Alonso is leading the battle 15-2, and the qualifying difference stands around 0.356 seconds in favour of the Spaniard. On top of that, the race duel is 12-1 in favour of the 2-time world champion, so there isn't much to talk about regarding who's the more competitive and reliable teammate. All in all, the numbers, facts and reality are all stacked up against Stroll, and given the recent surge of Aston Martin, it seems like Lawrence might finally have to sit down and have a brutal talk with his son about the foreseeable future of the team. Even Logan Sargent, the rookie and the heavily criticised number 2 driver of Williams, has picked up the qualifying pace and has regularly managed to get ahead of Lance during Saturday's showdown, which means that this is not going to be a good picture for all the investors who bought into the vision of Aston Martin's 2023 surge in performance. Lance Stroll's interest in the sport is definitely at the lowest level possible, whether we like that or not. This might be something of a hobby for him, considering how he acts at media press conferences and what kind of input he gives to his racing engineers and coaches for his car. The 2024 season is one in which we might witness massive changes, and while that is yet to be announced, the logical solution for Lance would be to seek his luck somewhere else. But while Lance laughed at the claims of David Croft that he might take up another sport, maybe David's idea is not so crazy after all, especially after the Qatar GP's disaster. Aston Martin has announced that they're going to compete in the World Endurance Championship and Le Mans, and they cannot be that separated from Stroll's attitude and achievements in Formula 1. If we're to look into Giovinazzi's F1 and Le Mans 24 career, we'd notice that he thrives a lot better in the latter category, a challenge that Stroll might be very keen on taking. The plunge of Aston Martin is very evident. The team went from being the competitor for P2 in the Constructors' Championship to effectively losing the battle to Mercedes and Ferrari. And now they're going to have it extremely hard to fight against McLaren, the team that just notched 2 consecutive 2-3 finishes in Suzuka and Qatar, and the team that has 2 drivers who finish high in the points. Piastri is already long past Stroll in the Drivers' Championship, and Norris is looking at the juicy P3 spot fight with Alonso and both Ferrari drivers after notching 3 consecutive podium finishes. Elaborating on Lance Stroll's future in F1, David Croft went on to say, "I want to see the Lance Stroll that turned up in Bahrain because I think he's lost his way a little bit. I think he's lost his mojo, and whatever's happened, Lance just doesn't seem to be as motivated now as he was at the start of the season. We never looked at his future elsewhere, but I just have a little feeling that in about a year and a half's time, Lance Stroll will race his last race in Formula 1 and go off and do something else. Because I just think he's losing his mojo. I don't think Formula 1 was the sport he wanted to do when he was younger. I mean, he was a massive tennis talent when he was younger, one of the best youngsters in Canada at the time, and I just wonder if he might go off and find something that fulfills him more and bring more excitement to him." But if Lance Stroll doesn't enjoy the sport as much as everybody anticipates him to, then that practically means that his father has lost the only reason he is in the sport in the first place. Obviously, had it not been for Lawrence, Stroll wouldn't have gotten the opportunity out of Williams, and his father wouldn't have invested millions of dollars to lead a consortium of investors from Aston Martin to enter the sport. On top of that, he managed to sign Honda as their engine supplier from 2026 onwards, as they're currently on top of their game, so Lawrence's long-term plans are what every businessman would label as a great investment. However, it's definitely an issue when your son isn't as interested as you'd want him to be, especially after investing so much in the sport. Reputable sources say that Lawrence Stroll is no longer looking at his son as the locked-in seat in Aston Martin, and furthermore, he lacks the motivation to finance his son's career in Formula 1. It's not only Stroll's lack of performance, but also his crashes that are causing his father to spend a lot of money on repairs rather than developing the car in the right direction. And one of the companies that are reportedly looking into buying out Aston Martin is the Saudi oil company that promotes the sport inside the country to the maximum extent possible. On top of that, Aramco is one of the primary sponsors of Aston Martin and F1, and initial reports say that they're ready to offer as much as $800 million to take over the leading rights of the Silverstone-based team. While Aston Martin initially denied the rumour, stating that Aramco is one of their most valued sponsors and the relationship will remain as it is right now, F1 is growing in popularity and Stroll might be open to a discussion if Aramco makes an official offer. Elaborating on this matter, Lawrence went on to say, "That's not planned at the moment. However, we have been approached. Formula 1 is a sport and a business that burns. We mustn't forget that Aston Martin has a business outside of F1, and that business has recorded worrying financial results off track. In March, the road car company losses had more than doubled compared to 2022, and the F1 team also recorded significant losses last year, despite increasing the money that came from sponsorship and prizes. Therefore, the future of Stroll is not the only thing that is under a huge question mark right now. The existence of the team as well. Even though they signed ambitious deals with lucrative companies, it seems like they might not live to see the day if the team and Stroll do not pick it up together and find a common solution for their performance problems." So, what do you think about Stroll's future in Formula 1? Let us know in the comments down below.